why the actual crack does it do that? These patterns show up in all sorts of different scenarios, both living and non-living, plants, animals. Some are very small, others quite large. They can form super slowly or even in an instant. There must be some underlying mechanism, some unifying principle that can explain all of these in one shot. I finally found an intuitive explanation for why these cracks form. All of these cracks form in order to relieve internal stress. Yeah, that was a good rip. Most of the papers out there deal with slurries, mixtures of liquid and some particles like dirt or cornstarch. One paper even used coffee. They let these slurries dry out. As the liquid evaporates, the particles may or may not shrink. Like if it's sand, the particles are obviously not going to shrink, but in the case of cornstarch, they will. What matters is that the total volume will shrink. The material is contracting. Here's a slurry made of cornstarch and water. We're gonna let this dry and hopefully it forms some crack patterns. When the layer is thicker, the domains become larger. If you coat the bottom surface in a thin layer of oil, this actually inhibits crack formation. So this really gives you a sense of the role that friction plays in creating those domains. The paper explained it like this. Friction at the bottom of the container resists horizontal contraction, which gives rise to stresses. These inner stresses are relieved by cracking. The underlying surface plays a huge role in why cracks form. If there were no friction, there would be nothing to hold it back from just uniformly scaling down. Friction causes it to pull itself apart. Here's one analogy. Let's imagine you and a bunch of people are spread out in a room holding hands. The people represent particles in the slurry. As it dries out, everyone starts pulling hard as they can towards themselves. The material at every location is trying to contract inward. Someone eventually loses grip, and then you have this hole open there. Well, now the links that are surrounding that hole are under a tremendous amount of stress. The crack will now start to propagate as more and more people close to the affected area let go. This is exactly how two separate papers modeled crack formation. They modeled it as a set of masses connected by springs. In their particle simulation, they gradually shorten the springs, making them tighter and tighter until some of them start to break. Their model was based on the idea that the particles are relatively strongly bonded to each other, but weakly bonded to the surface they're resting on. Ultimately, this simulation produced crack patterns that almost exactly matched up with those observed in their real-world experiment. I think they used these styrofoam balls that shrank as they dried out. Now that we understand why individual cracks form, let's go deeper into how the overall pattern forms. Why do most cracks meet at right angles? If this represents a domain that is formed in a crack pattern and I pull on it, the stress field is like running parallel to this edge. As you get closer to this edge, this stress field can only be going parallel to it. It can't be going this way because there's nothing to pull it in that direction. So the best direction for the crack to propagate is always going to be perpendicular to that stress direction because that will relieve the most stress. Perfect crack. One final thing is that crack patterns often form hierarchically. They form by successive domain divisions. The first cracks create these large domains. Once this domain is separated from its neighbors, the only stresses acting on it are those within it. So as it dries further, new cracks form to relieve that stress, thus forming new domains. This process continues until the slurry is sufficiently dry. And the widest cracks are always going to be the oldest. So that's how you can start to read the history of crack formation by just inspecting the end result. It's cold in this room as fuck. Oh, it's been raining for like a week. I'm just done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this patterns interesting. It's been in like the back of my mind for years trying to understand how they form. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Internal stress. Come on. Oh, that was so bad. That was so freaking bad. Train going by again. It never stops.